Donald Trump wants to pass the big, beautiful bill. He loves the big, beautiful bill, and there's so many big, beautiful things in it. It's a big, bogus bill. There's a whole bunch of crap in it. Unfortunately, one of the things that is crap in it is this little section, as described by USA Today. Trump's Republican allies in Congress are trying to help him hobble the judges who are, who are basically telling him that he could be held in contempt of court. His officials could be held in contempt of court because they're refusing to follow judicial orders. So the One Big Beautiful Bill Act says it passed the House on May 22nd. The short provision that basically hampers judges from being able to enforce that law. Section 70302, restriction of funds. No court of the United States may use appropriated funds to enforce a contempt citation for failure to comply with an injunction or temporary restraining order if no security was given when the injunction order was issued pursuant to Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 65C. So, do we believe that Donald Trump and his administration understands what 65C says? No, we don't. Why? Because here's what it says. Rule 65, injunctions and restraining orders. Preliminary injunction. The court may issue preliminary injunction only on notice to the adverse party. Consolidated hearing, blah, blah, blah. Issue without notice if for a TRO, if something is necessary or whatever. C, security. The court may issue a preliminary injunction or temporary restraining order only if the movant gives a security in an amount that the court considers proper to pay the costs and damages sustained by any party found to have been found wrongfully enjoined or restrained. Very important words there. I'll repeat it again. The court may issue a preliminary injunction or a temporary restraining order only if the movant gives security in an amount that the court considers proper to pay the costs and damages sustained by any party found to have been wrongfully enjoined or restrained. So the judge has to basically determine what that cost might be so you have the security that's given. But what if there's no cost? What if there's no additional cost? What if it's actually cheaper? What if by deporting these people, you are causing more funds to be expended when in reality, if you would have done the right thing and measured twice before cutting, you would have realized that some of these people shouldn't have been, and you would have saved money. So these temporary restraining orders, these injunctions that are being passed by being ruled on by these courts in these particular issues, have the end goal of saving the taxpayers' money, because you're not spending money on people who shouldn't be deported. You're not spending money rounding all those people up. You're not spending money on anything else that this presidency is trying to do. So if it's saving money, then the amount that the court would consider proper to pay the costs and damages sustained by being wrongfully enjoined or restrained would be zero, or negative even, but you can't do a negative, so it would be zero. So according to, again, this, no court of the United States may use appropriated funds to enforce a contempt citation for failure to comply with an injunction or temporary restraining order if no security was given. So this law is saying that pursuant to 65C, that you have to give security every time there's failure to comply with an injunction or temporary restraining order. But that's simply not true. Because the specific law in 65C says that you have to do a security only if there would be financial loss for being wrongfully restrained or wrongfully having an injunction placed against you. But the Trump administration is full of idiots who don't understand the law or don't care to know the law or just know it and don't give a crap about it. One of those three. Or it could be multiple versions. I don't know. But yeah, anyway. They don't understand the law. And they're trying to force the court, take the court's power away from them to enforce these restraining orders. Now, of course, there's a whole other issue of how does contempt of court work when it comes to the presidency, because as most of us saw when we were watching the big cabinet meeting that was up live, and Pam Bondi was out there talking her BS about, all the stuff that she was talking about. One of the first things she said was that she would make sure that the U.S. Marshals don't go after anybody found in contempt, because the U.S. Marshals are controlled by the Justice Department, run by Pam Bondi. And despite the fact that Pam Bondi says
no one is above the law in this country,
she is going to deny the ability of the court, the power of the courts, to send the U.S. Marshals out to put somebody who is in contempt of court, in jail. Because you are not allowed to defy a court order. That's the law.
no one is above the law in this country.
Except for Pat Bondi, Donald Trump, and the rest of this criminal administration at this point. Because basically anybody who's supporting any of the acts that he's done that are illegal are criminal. If he's failing to follow a court order, basically saying that they're breaking the law. Criminals. They're all criminals. Right? I mean, I'm sure conservatives listening and will say a whole bunch of BS that is nonsensical. But again, just to reiterate the point, the actual law only requires a security to be paid if there's a potential of financial loss for being wrongfully enjoined. That doesn't mean that all restraining orders and all injunctions or restraining orders, it doesn't mean that all of them will incur loss on behalf of the other party. And the potential loss could be zero. Again, as I said, it could be negative, because you might actually be saving money by being stopped from doing all this BS. Anyway, what do you think? Do you agree with me? That the Trump administration is, not following this law, not understanding this law properly, and just basically trying to use this to get out of having to follow court orders and protecting his own who are following his orders instead of the court orders? Or do you think that Donald Trump is reasonable and fair in doing all that stuff? Leave your comments down below. Remember to like the video, share, subscribe to the channel, of course, unless you're a Nazi. Have a good day.